All right, let's jump right into this explainer, where we're basically going to completely dismantle reality as you know it. We're exploring the mind-bending philosophy of Nāgārjuna's Mūlamadhyamakakārikā, specifically dialing in on its ultimate conclusion. The map is not the territory. I mean, if you've ever felt like the universe is just way too complex for words, well, Nāgārjuna mathematically and philosophically proved exactly why that is over 2 millennia ago. So buckle up, because we're about to deconstruct, well, everything.
Think about this for a second. What if your brain actually evolved to hide reality from you? I know, it sounds a bit crazy, but our brains aren't built to be absolute truth detectors. Not at all. They're fundamentally evolutionary survival engines. Our cognitive architecture is hardwired with these really simplistic heuristics meant for the African savanna. Basically, we evolved to avoid getting eaten by lions, right? Not to comprehend the multidimensional cosmos.
And because of that primal instinct, we developed all these tools to categorize the world. To put it simply, all human concepts, dualities, triads, squads, views, models, philosophies, and even our most advanced scientific theories, they're all imperfect, dependently co-arisen, hypothetical maps. To survive, our ancestors had to build this massive, complex mental scaffolding. But here's the absolute crucial point. Those hypothetical maps are never the actual territory. They are not reality as it fundamentally is. They're just incredibly practical sketches.
So where do these sketches actually come from? Well, it all traces back to a biological mechanism called edge detection. This is our deeply ingrained survival instinct to project artificial, definite boundaries onto nature, space, and time. We had to sharply distinguish between predator and prey, safe and dangerous, self and other. I mean, that was literally a matter of life or death. But here's the real kicker. Reality itself actually has no such fixed physical boundary lines. Nature doesn't draw lines. Our biology does.
And this whole edge detection thing, it sets off this really tragic 4-step trap. It starts at step 1, right, with that basic biological edge detection for survival. From there, in step 2, we build massive conceptual maps to organize these edges into whole civilizations and philosophies. But then comes step 3, which is the fatal error, reification. We actually start believing our maps are absolute reality. And that leads directly to step 4, suffering. We inevitably suffer because we're constantly trying to squeeze a boundless, fluid universe into our rigid, neat little boxes. It's just a completely losing battle. Let's look closer at that fatal error in step 3. It's called reification, or samarapa. This is the flaw of taking these dependently co-arisen maps, which, let's remember, are really just conventional truths and provisional tools, and treating them as the absolute territory. Reification is literally the absolute primordial root of all human suffering. Why? Because we absolutely refuse to abide in reality as it actually is, which is open and fluid. Out of pure fear, we prefer the suffocating, predictable safety of our artificial maps, constantly clinging to right and wrong, pure and impure, self and other. Section 1. The Universal Solvent. Dismantling our conceptual boxes. Enter Nāgārjuna. Think of him as a philosophical surgeon from 2,000 years ago. His primary scalpel was the chatuskoti, or the tetralemma, this relentless fourfold logic. And with it, he systematically dismantled linear causality, motion, space, time, perception, the very concept of the self, karma, and even core Buddhist doctrines like the 12 links of dependent origination. He basically exposed our entire existential scaffolding as a flimsy, untenable conceptual box. If you try to grab onto a concept, Nāgārjuna's logic just dissolves it right in your hands.
And the sheer scale of his teardown is just staggering. Whether it's realism and materialism projecting an objective world of discrete things, or monism claiming everything is just one absolute substance, the tetralemma exposes their absurdity. Material things simply can't exist without observers and a relation to space and time, and the concept of one is totally mathematically meaningless without the concept of many. Every major philosophy fails completely because they all rely on the exact same fundamental erroneous assumption: inherent existence. They all assume things exist independently from our map-making minds, and, well, they just don't.
Section 2. The holographic river of flux. So, if all our concepts are entirely empty of inherent existence, if our maps are all fundamentally flawed, what is the actual territory? Well, in the true territory of reality, there are absolutely no independent nouns, meaning there are no solid, unchanging entities anywhere in the cosmos. There are no standalone verbs, meaning no isolated actions. And there are no absolute relations, because think about it, there are no separate things to relate in the first place. Reality as it is can only be pointed to as an inconceivable, multidimensional, holographic, fractal karmic flux, which, let's be honest, is frankly way too much for our prehistoric edge-detecting brains to handle on a daily basis.
On one side, we have the map, filled with fixed nouns, rigid boundaries, dualities, and the grand illusion of inherent existence. But on the other side, we have the territory, an ocean of total interdependence. When we contrast the two, it's so clear. The map is static and rigid, while the territory is a beautifully turbulent, rushing river of cause and effect. It's wildly dynamic, but completely devoid of any fixed entities. There's absolutely nothing substantial or permanent inside it. Section 3. The ultimate paradox of emptiness.
Now we reach Nāgārjuna's most radical masterstroke. Here is the true mind-bending twist. Even emptiness is empty. Turning emptiness, or the flux, into a new absolute truth, a new source, or a new ultimate reality is the exact same reification error as materialism. If you cling to emptiness as an absolute foundation, you're just mistaking a very subtle map for the territory all over again. You're just building another conceptual box.
So what else is empty of inherent existence? The two truths of relative and absolute reality, the ground and its manifestations, the three kayas, the foundational bodies of a Buddha, and yes, even the three gems, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Even the most sacred, foundational concepts of this entire philosophy are like mirages. They are completely empty of absolute, inherent existence. Now, they are highly refined, incredibly useful maps for sure, but they are still maps, nothing more.
Section 4. Navigating the fluid river.
If everything is empty, and there is absolutely no ultimate foundation to grasp, to protect, or to worship, we have to ask a very practical question. How do we actually live in this newly unveiled reality? Do we just give up? Not at all. Samsara is being bound by our dualistic glasses, driven by fear, reification, and suffering. But nirvana? Nirvana is living right here in samsara, while being fully aware of its true, empty, dynamic nature. Nirvana isn't some magical escape hatch into another dimension. It's living your everyday life, but simply taking off your heavy, dualistic glasses and accepting the absolute fluidity of the river around you.
And that brings us to the beautiful concept of suchness, or tathātā. Suchness is reality simply experienced directly and unmediated, without the suffocating heavy layer of inherent existence that we constantly project onto it. This simple, unmediated awareness of suchness is enough to dissolve our obsessions and gently unwind our karma. And the best part? We do this without destroying our practical everyday tools. We still use language, we still use concepts to function, but we hold them lightly.
As the text reminds us, there is no finish line to cross, no final effect to produce, no ultimate complete purification. The goal is the path. Instead of frantically searching for a final destination called liberation or cessation, we are invited to join a limitless, centerless dance of creation and awakening. We absolutely use our conceptual maps to navigate this world and to benefit others, but we do so with a light touch, knowing full well they are just empty, dreamlike fabrications.
Ultimately, if you remember just one thing from this entire explainer, your takeaway has to be this single, liberating directive. The map is not the territory. Use the tools without becoming slaves to them. Use the mind's maps to function in society, to learn, to grow, and to communicate. But internally, always abide in the boundless, uncarved territory of suchness. Don't let your survival instincts trap you in a prison of your own making.
So I leave you with this final provocative question. Will you keep fighting the current of the river, desperately clinging to your artificial boundaries and suffering the consequences? Or will you take off your dualistic glasses and finally see reality for what it is? Once you realize every conceptual box you've ever built is just an illusion of the mind, the only question left is whether you're ready to let go and swim. Thanks for exploring this massive paradigm shift with me today. If this broke your brain in the best way possible, there's an entire text by Nāgārjuna waiting for you to dive into. Take some time to let that simmer.